Hello, everyone. So happy to have you here for our conversation about should you stay in your relationship? Should you dig deeper? Should you explore what's possible there? Or is this time to walk away? And I've got Global Kristen here with me because she and I took two different paths in the woods, and we want to just share our stories about our relationships, how we came to the place we're at, and hopefully inspire you and help you get some clarity around your relationship and which way you want to go. So, as many of you know, my name is Shiloh Weiner. I am a love and marriage coach for women, and I help emotionally exhausted women who love their husbands really get their needs met and have that real life love story where they come through the hardship and they come out on top for the long haul. And I want to thank Kristen for being here and just invite her to share a little bit about what she does and what her focus is so you have some context around this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. We were so excited to bring this to you guys. And we've been thinking about this for a while now. And we just feel like sharing our journeys is the best way to really show you what you might align with. But yeah, I'm Global Kristen. I call myself a spiritual clarity coach. But for those people that don't really know what that means, the best catch and grab that I can give you is a life coach. So if you're struggling with mindset, I help you overcome those challenges. Oftentimes it's us ourselves that are in our own way. We can't get over feeling like we might fail or feeling like we're incapable of doing things. So I really help you work through all of that so that you can come out on top and really live the dream life that you really want to live, despite the fact that it might look different than what other people want for you. So I really teach you how to do that. So excited to be here, and we're excited to dive into this today.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. One thing that I know we both align on is that living the life of your dreams requires you to step out with courage,
That's
no
right.
matter which way you shake it. You can't just do the same thing you've always been doing. You can't hide out because you're going to keep getting that same unhappiness, that same stuck feeling. So
Exactly.
to all you watching, please interact. Please ask your questions below. If you ask questions in the comments, we'll come around later. We'll answer them. We love to hear what you have to say. We're going to ask you, to weigh in a little bit here. So don't be shy to raise your hand, put a heart, put a question. If you're watching the replay, put hashtag replay. And just don't be shy because this is all about you. This is about providing you
Yes.
with valuable insight and wisdom information. So I'm going to start with you, Kristen, if that's all right.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
When did you know and how did you know that you were like, this ain't gonna work? I gotta go.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me, I had already been on my own self-discovery journey, and I had been like really deep diving and looking into like why I made the decisions I made and how I ended up where I ended up. So once I started doing that inner work with myself, I really just started to realize that my values weren't really in alignment with my ex-husband's values. And so that started to pique my curiosity, because then I was like, I mean, like, what do? You put so much time in. Like for me, it had been 17 years at that point. We already had our daughter, we already lived together. And so when you start to kind of ask yourself these questions, like, should I really even be here? It can feel really scary and overwhelming, because you just start thinking of like, well, if I decide not to stay, I've got to change this and that and this and that and this. And it just can feel like the entire world. And for a lot of people, that's why they stay. But for me, I just got to a place where I really knew my self-worth. I knew my value. I knew how to love myself. And I really wanted to share that with someone that would like emphasize that and add on top of what I already had for myself. And I just knew that even through years with like counseling and trying, that like my ex-husband, still new, was not able to provide me with what I needed. And so I knew like, okay, like this is it. Like I'm going to choose me. And just, I didn't know what my future was going to hold, but I just knew what I wanted. And I knew that I didn't want to be there anymore. So that was pretty much how it was for me.
Right. So how long ago was this now?
That wasn't long. It really was the last few months, this past summer, where everything pretty much just, I made the decision. And then once I made the decision and like let him know like where my thoughts were, it pretty much like sped up after there. Like it was like, it almost felt like me making the decision was like releasing both of us, because it's like someone has to make the decision, and if both people are too afraid to make the decision, then the decision never happens, and people just remain unhappy. So
So that's what
it
I'm really
wasn't
curious about. Like, sorry, like where was he at with this? Like people
yeah.
get all kinds of
So
different reactions. They're afraid of their husband's reaction. What's he going to say? What's he going to
right,
do? What happened
right.
when you got clear with him?
Exactly. I would say, and just, I know that there are people that do know me. So just in an effort to just protect his privacy for people that do know who I was married to, I think that for him, it just, it was still a shock because it's just such a big, weighty thing. But I do think that he handled it well. I do think that he handled it well. I wouldn't necessarily say that like, he was all in like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do this, but I just think it was a shock, but he
Yeah.
just took it in stride and did the best that he could with what I told him, That's what I'll say. Yeah.
That's a blessing, right?
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So for you, Shiloh, if I could,
Mhm.
like, because I know that we
Mhm.
took totally different paths and, I know my defining moment looked how it looked, how I just explained it. So how
Right.
was yours? Because you did decide that you wanted to stay. And
Yeah.
so how did you know that that was the right decision for you?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. And it's so interesting going back to when I was wrestling with, is this relationship sustainable, right? Because
Mhm.
you can handle anything for a couple weeks, a couple months, but then there's that, I can handle this for 50 years. Like
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
could be very, very, this is my life now. And what I always find difficult to describe is that in that time when it wasn't going well, that was not sustainable. Like that wouldn't have been
Mhm.
if it would, you know, emotional distance and bickering and lack of communication breakdown, like not feeling supported, feeling like the really air of criticism and negativity. I couldn't have stayed in that. So
Mhm.
it's more so like my breakdown moment was, yes, this can't go on,
Mhm.
but I need to do something about it in it. And I think the reason that I came to that conclusion, you mentioned values, that was a big part of it. Our values were the same. We had
Mhm.
this vision of raising our kids and our legacy and
Mhm.
our commitment to that. And just also his character, that he was a man I really admired, and he's very intelligent and very hardworking, and like somebody who I had never met someone like that. Like I had gone
Mhm.
years before meeting him where I was single and going, I don't meet one guy who catches my eye.
Mhm.
Like this is scary scenario. There's
Mhm.
not people who um I think we've experienced this where you have that like, oh my God, this person exists.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And
Yes.
I still held that, like that was
Mhm.
real. I
Mhm.
wasn't crazy.
Mhm.
And that had been covered up by the dynamic in our relationship, but he was
Mhm.
still that man, right?
Right.
And so for me, it came down to there was like a deep knowing
Hmm.
that this person was for me,
Okay.
with the conflict, with some of the, personality clash that comes
Mhm.
inevitably to some degree. But we're quite different people. We're very different people. And going, I just know that he's for me. Like
Mhm.
it's not quite right, but I know he loves me like crazy and I still love him. There must be a way through. And so that was kind of this,
Mhm.
I guess, intuition
Mhm.
that there had to be a way through, even though it was like a brick wall from my perspective. It was like, there has to be a way through. And so, that's something that's so hard to really describe because in your work, I'm sure you work with this a lot, and people's intuitive knowing and just like, is this
Mhm.
for me?
Mhm.
Because one of the characteristics of the real life love story is there's the bad part. Like in any story, there's the
Mhm.
like, oh
Mhm.
no, this is
Mhm.
not the way I thought it would be.
Right.
Um, but if this person is for you, that's part of your transformation. That's part of your work. That's part of your
Mhm.
story. And if they're
Mhm.
not for you, it's like, this just feels like unnecessary suffering and drama. I don't
Mhm.
see where the goal is in this,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, Shiloh, you brought up a really good point, which I actually want to bring back because I feel like it's such a major thing. And I think this is where people wrestle a lot. And you talked about values, and I know I touched on that too. And that is the major difference, one of the major differences between my relationship and your relationship that you described. Like I was not in alignment. Our values were not aligned. And I think that a lot of people don't actually know what their values are. And your values come from your desires. Like, what do you want? How do you want to feel? How do you want to feel supported? How do you want to feel loved? How do you want to, how do you want to feel in your career? How do you want your spouse to respond to you when you're sad? Like just different things like that. And unless you sit with yourself and ask yourself what the hell you want, you won't know your values. And if you don't know your values, you don't know whether or not you're aligned. You just know that something doesn't feel right, but you don't know. So I love that you were able to detect and determine that for your relationship, you were in alignment with your values. And that is such a great foundation for hope, inspiration, knowing that there's a path forward because you're aligned on those really important things to you. So that was huge. So thank you for bringing that up again.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point that people don't even know, they don't even know what the problem is. Like they know it's a problem and they know they don't feel right, but like what is it? And this is something I just want to add in there is that you don't know if it's a me problem, you don't know if it's a him problem, you don't know if it's an us problem, and that is something that getting like really solid feedback on makes all the difference in the world. Because you cannot see your blind spot. You cannot tell if this is your baggage from childhood,
Right.
where you're holding out love, where you can't receive from somebody, where you're like so guarded and so afraid and so defensive that you cannot engage on the deep level. You want to receive on the deep level, but you can't engage on the same deep level. And by the same token, you can't tell if this is your childhood issue saying, I deserve this treatment. This is just how all men are. I have to take it because that's what good girls do. Like it's really, really hard to get outside of that lens that you're bringing to the table. And that's something that, when I healed my relationship, when I recovered my relationship, it was confusing. It was slow. I didn't know if I was doing it the right way. I didn't know any of it because I didn't have me now looking back on it going, okay, this is the part. This is your part. This is a Shiloh thing. You need to own that. You need to stop projecting that on your partner. And then the other parts were going, you know what? He struggles with that thing. You're going to decide if you're going to accept that part of him or not, because it's not about you. Right. And just untangling all of that is almost impossible to do alone, to do in isolation.
Right. And there is like a bit of self-interrogation that has to happen, right, Shiloh? Like we have to look at ourselves and ask, like, how did I contribute to the challenges that we're facing? What can I take responsibility for? And I think that a lot of people haven't been taught how to do that. They've just been taught to blame. That's a big one. Blame, well, if they did this or if they did that. And it's like, what about you, sweetheart? What about you, hun? Like, what did you do? Like, what about your part? So I know that that's a big thing that I teach in my program about accountability and like really looking at ourselves and how we could be contributing to the challenges or the problems, because we do play a role. It's not just the other person. But before I even move on from that, I didn't get to hear about what it was like for you when you went to your husband, like, because that's vulnerable. Like, what if you want to stay and your husband's like, actually, Shiloh, I don't. Like, I'm sure that was scary for you. Talk to us about how that experience was.
So I'm really lucky in that he never wanted to go. He was just like a rock solid in. And like from the moment we fell in love, he's been that like emotional train, like on a track, like this is it, this is the decision I made. And he's got that very masculine identity of, it doesn't matter how I feel about it. I made a decision and I'm committed to that decision. That's it. And at the time I thought that was what do they say, a bug, a feature, not a bug. I thought that was a bug. I was like, this man isn't in the present, he's not in his heart, he's just on this plan. Like, where is he? Like, not right. And now I'm like, wow, the stability of this person who is so integral to his values and his decisions that he can take any kind of ups and downs. He's like, no, like, we're not sleeping. We have small kids. And so when I would approach him with like, oh, I'm not feeling good, this doesn't feel right, like our relationship's not right, he would kind of have a like, this is life. Like, we got little kids, we're busy. And I was like, what? Like, that's not right. That's not life. This is not how it's meant to be. And so that is where I thought, oh no, we have different expectations. We have different desires. If he doesn't even want it, how am I ever going to get it? And so the most painful season was when I kept trying to get him online. Like, hey, do you see this? Do you want to work with me? Do you get it? And he would kind of not get it and not see it, or more or less think this is just a season, or this is just like normal life. Again, like coming from those childhood experiences, or what you saw people do relationship as. Like, this ain't bad. Like, we're not really mean to each other. And it's just kind of superficial relationship at that point. Right. And so that was the moment where I had to, like, you talk about taking radical responsibility. I had to be like, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to improve this relationship because I need that. Whether or not he needs it, right? He might be able to tolerate this thing where we're at, but I can't. And instead of going, well, he should change his perspective, he should also not like it, go, me not liking it is enough reason.
Yes,
Me
that's
saying
right.
this, me just saying I need more, me just saying, this isn't where it needs to be. That is enough reason for me to take action, me to take responsibility, me to go and like find the resources, find the information, find the support to go, how does this work? I can't be the only one, right? I can't be the only one in this situation. And I can tell you, like, there is a solution to every problem. Like, seek and ye shall find. If you're like, all right, this is not working for me, and you go on a hunt, you will find the answer. And that's what I did. It was this moment of total commitment. Like, I'm going to find this answer, and I'm going to stop barking up the wrong tree, right? Like, I had said, hey, help me with this, help me with this, help me with this. And he's going, I don't know. Like, he didn't know. I can't remember what your question was. Oh yeah. So his response. But what was so amazing is that when I took this radical responsibility and said, what can I do differently? My communication is not getting through. I think it's great communication, but it's not getting through. So let me look at these results and interrogate myself. What energy am I bringing? What's my attitude? What are my thoughts? What thoughts do I have when I look at this person? He feels all of that. And I changed my vibe. He started changing right away, like really right away. And like without effort, right? Because I have this massive influence as one person in the relationship. So I kind of laugh now when you talk about it being for me. I had this very pure experiment where he was not engaging in the work, right? I was like, okay, you're not engaging in the work. Can it be done if I'm engaging in the work? And I catalyzed his growth. I catalyzed his awareness, his vulnerability, his openness, because I became such a solid, safe person. So not blaming and shaming and putting stuff on him. And I'm not perfect. I mean, I still get in moods, and I still have days where I go back to victim attitudes that I carried my whole life, And it's funny now, because now when I do it, there's like an observer in my head going, Shiloh, you're doing that weird thing. Right? That's not going to work for you. Why? That's not helpful. Right.
Yeah.
But it's just a habitual thought pattern. So yeah, it's I've gained through this experience so much healing. My little girl growing up to be the woman who doesn't just feel victimized, feel entitled to certain kinds of treatment, but stands for it, takes action for it. And also really healed my relationship to the masculine and to men. Because I learned that he was loving me with everything he had. He wasn't not caring. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't, I don't want to do the work just because I don't feel like it. He was just giving me what he had to give at that time. That was all of it. Right.
And Shiloh, I want to touch on something else that you said, because it's so big, when you talked about how when you guys would talk about the relationship, you know, when you looked at it, it's like, well, I mean, this isn't bad, you know? And like in the grand scheme of things, if we're comparing it to maybe what we saw grow up or maybe what we know like other people have experienced, we tend to minimize our discomfort. And then a lot of people just become complacent and stay. And a lot of people in my life, there are still people that, you know, are in my family or that are close that still don't understand my decision, you know, because it's like my ex-husband wasn't a bad guy. He was a hard worker. You know what I mean? Like he was never abused me. Like he wasn't like a drinker or a gambler. He wasn't on drugs. You know, so when people see that, a lot of times they like to do the whole, like, I mean, it could be worse. You know, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I mean, you should be grateful. And it's like, so I'm supposed to be grateful because I'm not happy just because he doesn't abuse me physically or do drugs. Like, I'm just supposed to be happy. And they're like, yeah, because that's what they did, you know? So a lot of this journey is like you just deciding what you want for you and what works for you. And just because someone, you know, isn't blowing up your life, if you're not happy, it's still okay for you to pursue what does make you happy. And the other thing that I wanted to say was that, oh man, what was it? It was like you were talking about like you and your husband, and you were talking about as you grew, your husband began to grow too. And when you changed your vibe, his vibe changed. That was another difference that I wasn't really experiencing myself. Like I knew I was growing, but it felt like there were times when it's like, man, I'm the only one apologizing. I'm the only one admitting when I'm wrong about something. I'm the only one, you know, and it's like, I couldn't continue to, as I got stronger and stronger in myself, it was creating more and more distance. Like you got to have someone who's going to meet you halfway and ride the journey with you. And not everybody is at that place in life at the time that they want to go on the self-discovery journey. And that's okay. That's all right. I just know where I'm going, you know? So I just point that out because I know a lot of people want to hear like the differences between like how you were able to stay and how someone doesn't. And so I just wanted to emphasize that. But yeah, go ahead, Shyla.
I love that. I love that. And that's something that I try to clarify for clients when they're coming on a discovery call and it's like, can this work for me? Right? Is my husband going to come along? And really you only know by walking the road.
That's right.
And you can't predict. I've had clients who are like so close to divorce and they're so convinced that I'm like, well, I don't know, chances are there, but they're not big. And then in 4 weeks, they're great. And I'm like, okay, like their perspective was negative. Their mindset was negative, but the relationship wasn't that bad. Like they were very close to their breakthrough, right? Or you have other people similar to you who've been working on it for 20 years and they're like, can this happen? I'm like, wow, you're so positive. You're so grateful. They just have a really positive mindset and then they work really hard and this person doesn't change at all. And I'm like, that's your sign. Like if you have, I always say it's no stone unturned. Like if you have done everything and you have got support, especially if you have got support, because honestly, when I was in my own head, I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea that there was a whole nother way to transform a relationship that wasn't what I'd seen anybody do, or, you know, didn't have couples therapy, didn't have your husband doing an inner journey, didn't have him really even understanding what was wrong, just changing it, just like taking action. So, I lost my train of thought there for a second. I was going to say about your situation. What I find is that when a man is flexible enough, I suppose, to follow that vibe, to release into your energy and go with that flow, it happens within 3 months. It could take up to 3 months, but usually you will see something change, even if it's just little glimmers of, you know, oh, wow, he's like more grateful, or he's like more affectionate. And you're like, he's like connecting to me more. It happens really quickly. And so what I recommend any person, whether they're like leaning towards staying, leaning towards going, is engage deeply in the work, whatever work you choose to do, you know, take it seriously because it will take on a life of its own. You don't know what it will create. It could create the most amazing love story of your life, or it could give you the power to leave something that doesn't serve you.
That's absolutely right. And like I'd also recommend to just like give like yourself, if you're toiling with the decision, like the space and the grace to think it through, like it's like sometimes it can feel like you are like, that's it. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I got to leave today. I got to go. Or like, I'm going to say, I got to like, you don't have to like rush yourself into anything unless you're in something that's like physically dangerous. That's the only thing. Like, obviously get yourself to a safe place, but otherwise don't feel like you have to change everything in a day. You can't change everything in a day. It's impossible, whether you're staying or going. You can't change everything in a day. So just take everything in stride. Give yourself a moment, a beat to really think things through. And, that way, that you really have peace with your decision, like with whatever you decide,
I love what you said, Kristen, because if you're rushing it, you're coming from a place of trauma. Whether that's I gotta stay or I gotta go this minute, like that kind of panic or that kind of freeze response, or I can't even think about this. I can't think about this. I can't, like you're avoiding the thought of how stressed you are. That is not your higher self. That's not your truth. That's your panic saying like, this is too scary for me to process. So it definitely takes time to come to genuine confidence about your decision. You can have genuine confidence about it. Like now I'm so grateful. I'm like, oh my God, my life is like the dream come true. Like I always dreamed of having like a real deep love affair, which is just like, got the chemistry and got the solidity and got the kids and it's all the whole package. And like, I earned that shit. That did not just happen. That was a result of me, like, first of all, putting up and being able to receive what was already there, but also standing for myself, increasing my self-worth, increasing my skills.
And even when you do decide, even when you come to a decision and you're like, whether you're like, I am going to stay, or you're like, no, I know I am going to go. You still don't have to do anything fast. My angels tell me that so much. Even once you make the decision, like my angels tell me, they say, Kristen, there are very few things in life that you need to do very quickly. And it's like, okay, like there's no fire. You know what I mean? It's okay. Like I can, and there's a lot of things to unravel, or there's a lot of things that you have to do and consider. So,
I love that. It's that patience. And that's what I find too, is that if you're going to heal your relationship, you also got to take the long range perspective. You can't be like, oh, he didn't listen to me and so it didn't work. It's like, that's also a long game. Just like, confidently leaving a relationship is about your whole evolution and finding a healthier relationship and not just repeating the same pattern because you bounced, because you panicked. So Kristen, I wanted to ask you, a lot of people will say, oh, the signs were there from the beginning. Do you feel like there was some things that you missed, or you were in a different head frame, or how do you see the whole story now?
This is such a bomb ass question. And like, okay. So when I started on my self-discovery journey and I was like really learning about like myself and like, how did I end up in a relationship? What's going on? Like just really looking at myself, I really realized how I ended up where I was. And I recognized a lot of that from my past. Like there are honestly a lot of similarities to my ex-husband and like how things were in my upbringing. I can be honest and say that I didn't always have the emotional support that I needed. There was a lot of emotional distance. So that was a familiar feeling to me. And when I got older, I got into a relationship where there was an emotional distance. And that's the thing. It's like, we don't know this, but we replay our trauma from our childhood into adulthood because it's familiar, because it's comfortable, even though it's trauma. And so it's like, as I realized the similarities between my childhood and my adulthood, it just really shined a light on what I was lacking and what I was needing and what I didn't actually get. And then I learned to like supply myself with those things. So that was really my like huge understanding is like, I married my trauma, and it's like, wow, fucking wow. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
wow. And then it's like your eyes are open to so many other people that have that same experience,
Yes.
whether that's someone who's getting in a physically abusive relationship in their adulthood because that's what they saw growing up, or like someone who leaves a lot, lots of abandonment, and then they get older and like are in relationships where people are always like walking out on them. Again, replaying the trauma because it's familiar and we know what to expect. And the scary thing, and I know I'm going off topic a little bit, but the scary thing about that is like when you learn to love yourself, it can feel weird to accept love. It can feel weird to accept devotion. It can feel weird to accept support. You're like, what the fuck do I do with this? I don't know what to do with this. It feels like a hot potato because you haven't really had it in a way that you need it, And so a lot of times people reject love when it's staring them in the face. And that's part of my own experience. Like when I found my new partner and I was like, holy shit, this is actually the person that I do feel supported up with. Like they do support my dreams. Like they're ambitious like me and they like egg me on. They don't like kill my dreams. Like this is crazy. I can't do this. Like, I don't know if I can, And it's again, that rejecting love when love is staring you straight in the face. A lot of times you reject it because you're just like, I don't know what to do with this. You feel unworthy, all of the things. I'm going on a tangent.
So
Shyla,
I want to get in there.
Do it.
How did it feel in your body when you were getting more love than you could handle?
Wow. It felt crazy. Like I remember saying things like, who are you? I would ask him like, who are you? I literally felt like he wasn't from Earth. And I would say things like you speak the language of my soul. And I don't know how you do that, but like I Shiloh, it's like I couldn't explain like what it feels like to like truly be loved in a way that like makes fucking sense to you. And it's like I only would be clear on what I needed if I fucking knew what I needed. So it's like you got to do the work for that shit. You have to know for yourself.
Yeah.
But it feels incredible. It feels amazing. It feels like the overflow because I feel myself. My partner does not complete me. I complete me. And he comes in and fucking overflows that shit. And it's crazy. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. So yes, it felt amazing in my body. It felt like jolts of electricity. It felt like, oh shit, the lights still come on in this fucking dark ass building. That's what it felt like.
Right. Yeah. No, it's something like what you said, that they reject love when it's staring right in them the face. And I 100% see that every single day. And it's like, I spot it everywhere now. So you'll have a woman who's kind of frustrated in her marriage and a man will do something nice for her and she'll, you think that's going to work with me kind of attitude. And it's like, that was the love you asked for. You just get out of here. And so much like what I love about this journey, and I'm sure you're experiencing this, is that when you go, oh, there's a part of me that had no docking. There was no receptacle for that kind of love. And now I've created it by giving it to myself. Yes. So now there's this little receptacle for affection, or there's this receptacle for being seen and being just adored. Is that can grow forever.
Yeah.
Like, that is what this journey, like, I know we must sound crazy to you ladies. You're like suffering, and I'm sorry, but this is available to you. Yes. You're going, I'm in love. Yes. I'm totally adored. And actually, I'm still blocking some of it. I know it. Mm-hmm. There's still more I could let in. I'm still not totally unapologetically doing me 100% of the time. I'm not totally and completely allowing this person to be them. Like, there's still, you catch yourself, slipping into your little patterns. Like I was feeling a little bit stressed about a big project coming up, last week. So I was like a little bit energetically shut down, and I'm going, okay, I can feel the distance between us that I have created with my fixation, with my stress. And actually, as soon as I open that back up, it'll come back. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you gain an awareness and a mastery over your own openness, you can challenge yourself to open
Oh
more
yeah.
and
Yeah.
more and more. And then you end up in a relationship that has no ceiling on it,
Right.
which to me is the real life love story. When people say it gets better, you hear like 50, 70, 80-year-olds say that and you go, for real?
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
mean that it really got better? Because
Yes.
everyone else we see it got worse.
I
So
know.
like, how did it get better? And it's like these people have mastered this adventure of like,
Yes.
I'm going to open myself up to you and take these risks eternally.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the mature love. Like that is the
Mm-hmm.
real deal.
Yes, that's something Sean and I actually say to each other all the time. It's this affirmation we always say that we made up, which is there's always more and it just keeps getting better. We use that all the time about our love life, about business, about like there's always
Yeah.
more and it
Yeah.
just keeps getting better. And it's like fucking limitless. You know, it's
It is.
amazing. It's abundant. It's plentiful. It never ends. It just keeps getting bigger inside. Like
Right.
it's bigger on the inside. It's crazy.
It is. It really is. I'm trying to think. I'm loving this conversation. Was there anything else that we wanted to ask each other? Um, so I want you guys to put in the comments any questions you have,
Yeah.
anything we missed, any topics where you're like, what about this? What about that? Please put that in there.
Mhm.
I want you to raise your hand if you felt like your relationship has a ceiling on it. Like,
Mhm.
this is only how good it gets, and then we always come back down. There's like a bandwidth of
Mhm.
of pleasure, of joy, of fun, of connection. Do you feel like you're kind of stuck in this range? Raise your hand in the comments, put an emoji in there,
Mhm.
because
And if you
that's
can
how I
relate
felt.
to any of this stuff too, sorry,
Yeah,
Charlotte, I was just going to say
yeah,
too,
yeah.
if you can relate to these stories, like let us know what it is that you relate to. We're two different types of coaches, but we
Right.
both believe in, finding the thing that works best for you. And that's why we were so excited to come together for you guys for this. So yeah, throw some comments in there, like let us know where you're at, like whose
Yeah.
story you may seem that you align with more. And
Mhm.
yeah, just let us know.
No, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. So Kristen, what do you want somebody to know who was in your shoes? Has really what I see your story, if I can just sum it up, if you don't mind, is you
Yeah.
did the work. You were together for 17 years. This
Mhm.
was not a light decision. This was not, hey, I'm bored. Not cavalier. This was a very serious, soulful decision you made. And so for someone who's like you and has that, desire for a really deep love affair and is starting to wonder if maybe this isn't going to happen with this person, what do you want to say to them?
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question. And the first thing that I would do is suggest that you really start taking some time with yourself and thinking about what it is that you actually want. And that can feel painful when you start to think about that and realize that you're not getting it. But just continue to explore those feelings because you're going to need to know what you want in order to navigate forward. Okay. You have to know what your desires are. So start thinking about how you want to feel yourself, how you want to feel supported, how you want to feel yourself, and start thinking about how you can move toward doing that. So that's a great first step. And one of the ways that you can start doing these, I'll just give you two quick tips. Try meditation and sitting with yourself with some thoughts. That can also feel really difficult and overwhelming because it can be really noisy in your head, especially if you have not been sitting with yourself and your thoughts. But start with 1 minute, start with fucking 30 seconds, just start. Give yourself time and space to think and think about what you want. And if that's like a really difficult one for you, try journaling. That's the other thing, is just maybe write down in a private journal where only your eyes would see it. And yeah, I would say start there and reach out to me if you feel like you need any additional support. If you feel like my story really resonated with you, I would love to talk with you more about how I could support you. So you can just send me a DM, or say, Kristen, reach out to me or something like that. That way we can get connected. And with that said, Shiloh, I actually want to ask you because, like we're both two different coaches here. You coach women, I do coach men and women, but you coach women who do want to stay in the game. So if someone is really like, I do align with the values with my person and I do want to stay, like, what would you suggest for them for their next steps?
I love that question because it's so funny. Your advice, I thought, yeah, you got to start with what you want. You're going to stay, you're going to go, you have to know what you want. And so many women only know what they don't want. Like, he does this and I don't like it. He does that and I don't like it. He doesn't do this. And it's like, and what do you want again? What do you want? And I think you nailed it, that it's really, we're scared of the feeling of disappointment that will arise when we go, oh, I want all these things and it doesn't look like that in a variety of ways. And what I want to reassure you is that doesn't mean you have to leave. Like, I think a lot of women who really want to stay, they're even more afraid to face the gap between what they want and what they're getting, because they think, okay, that will highlight my negative emotion. And once those are highlighted, I'll be even more unhappy. And then I'll have to walk out the door. And what I think, Kristen and I really align on in this conversation is that you can do whatever you want.
Right. That's right.
You can stay no matter how hard it is. You can leave no matter how easy it is. Like, you are the only person who gets to choose what your standards are, what your values are, what you push through, what you don't. But you have to know what those are. Right. So sit with your desires, write them all down, be like, these are all the things I want. That is the first step to getting what you want, is knowing what you want. You will not get it until you know. That's pretty much the law of the universe. And then the next thing I would say is, you need to stop. Like, you talked about meditation. Like, we're rushing through our lives, trying to serve the family, trying to get the money, trying to just keep things afloat. And you will wake up one day very disconnected from your body. And you cannot have a love affair without a body. So let's just talk about embodiment and our being stuck in our head and our worries and our rush and our panic. When you are like feeling that frantic, I suppose, worried, anxious, in a hurry, sit back, put your hands on your chest, on your belly, and take deep breaths. And ask yourself, how do I feel in this moment? Connect to your feelings in your body. It's very simple, but very powerful. And so start with that. And then you say, what do I need? What do I need in this moment? What support do I need? How do I need to care for myself? What do I need to ask for? Most of the time, you know exactly what you need. You've just been afraid to admit to yourself and afraid to go get it. So trust that, that wisdom is in there, and that you can be with yourself. And same as Kristen, if you're like, well, what does that look like for me? And what about in my situation? This is the beautiful thing about having a coach, is it's personalized support. So anybody can read a book and anyone can go out and get the principles. There's tons of wisdom in this world. But when you're coming down to, well, what about this weird thing? What about this feeling? What about this funky thing my husband does? Is that a big problem or a little problem? Is that workable? You need somebody who gets it, who's been there, who's gone through that struggle and is no longer panicked about those feelings. Like, I was panicked when I was in it. Absolutely melting down. Like, how can I handle these emotions? I don't know how to process emotions. Nobody told me how. So they're just crushing me. And Kristen, I know we talked about this earlier, but when you do this type of inner work, which, there's so many coaches in the world, but in the end, we'd all do inner work, connecting with yourself, and different modalities to get there, different values, different structures to get there. But when you connect with yourself and you learn to regulate your emotions, you're not afraid of anything.
That's right.
You're like, if this relationship ends, I will live. If I've got to soldier through some hard years for whatever complications in your life that you decide to stay for, I can still be happy. I can actually be free and emotionally light in whatever circumstance there is. And that's because I chose those circumstances.
Right.
And even if you are afraid or a hard stay. Sorry?
Exactly. I was saying, even if you are afraid, you still do it anyway, because come what may, I can
Right.
handle it. I'm going to fucking handle it. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to handle it. I'm going to navigate it. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be okay because you
That's it.
always have yourself. I don't give a fuck who walks away, who comes back. You always have you. You always have you. So
That's
you're
right.
never alone. You are never alone for the rest of your life.
So
Once you find you, you're never alone.
You know what? You nailed it because you're still scared. Fear never leaves you.
Yeah.
You just become so courageous because
That's
you
right.
are an army of two.
That's
Like
right.
this thing about not being alone, it sounds bizarre, but I used to feel lonely. There's no loneliness. There's no loneliness once you're connected to you. You have your best buddy at all times, and she's got your back, and she's, you know, there pumping you up and saying you're amazing, and you know, look at you doing scary things. Like it's bizarrely amazing. And you're right, you will handle it. And you know, I think about those things not a lot, but like I'm in kind of a sweet spot in my life. My kids are healthy and small, you know, my relationship's amazing, there's no illness. Those things all will change at some point. Parents will pass, kids will run into their own stuff. Like my circumstances are pretty contained. And I think, okay, well, there could be hardship. And I'm just like, yeah, well, guess what? I'm not afraid of my own emotions anymore.
That's right.
They won't crush me.
Right.
And I can ask for help.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid of having a problem and asking for help. And it just makes the world feel so, I feel so supported, internal and external.
That's right.
That, you know, people love me. And why do I have to fear life? And that doesn't mean there's not grief. But when grief comes, you go, I'm grieving.
Yeah, that's right.
We're doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Shiloh, this was bomb. This conversation was so fire. Like, oh, it was so good. Like, I'm so glad that we were able to connect like this. And I'm honestly looking forward to doing this again with you at some point, you know, just to really like continue to share our story, continue to share our experiences, knowing that like we're really touching people's lives out there and like our work is powerful. Like I salute you and what you do. Like I'm so proud to know you and to be alongside you as a fellow coach. It feels awesome.
You're amazing. I love your whole vibe and radiance. You know, we give other women permission to shine. There's no jealousy. There's no judgment. I love your, you know, ascension. I love your being large in this world. And that's something that I'm proud with you to stand and show other women that this is not alienating to one another. It's not alienating to love. It has brought more love into our lives, that we got bigger, that we got braver, that we showed up for ourselves. That's right. Oh, I'm getting the chills. So yes, we got to end this at some point because we could go on all day. But Kristen and I both are welcoming your input, welcoming your comments. Please, you know, if you guys got any questions, we'd love to answer your questions in the future or in the comments. These topics are truly, they're endless. There's always more we can dig into in this limitless self-knowledge and receiving and giving of love. So if you're like, yes, this is my vibe, I need this in my life, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Yes, we love you guys, and we'll see you next time we do this. We'll see you on the platform.